Right, you lot. Bobby Kotick's crawled out from under his rock. He's got something to say. Man who walked out with over $400 million while his company paid out over $107 million in harassment settlements, filed a legal response blaming everyone but himself for absolute state of things. Swedish pension funds, Embracer Group, Battlefield, activists, fucking weather, probably his nan's cat. Everyone except Bobby fucking Kotick. So grab a brew, settle in, because this is going to be a proper autopsy of corporate delusion. So here's what's happening. There's a Swedish pension fund called AP7. Back in 2022, they filed a lawsuit claiming Kotick rushed Microsoft's sale to escape accountability for all harassment bollocks. Pretty straightforward claim, right? Company's on fire, CEO sells up before he gets burned, walks away with hundreds of millions. Not exactly galaxy-brain deduction, but Bobby's come back swinging. By swinging, I mean flailing wildly at shadows like a drunk uncle at a wedding disco. His legal team has filed a response claiming, I shit you not, that this lawsuit was secretly orchestrated by Embracer Group to damage Activision. Embracer, company that owns Tomb Raider and Dead Island. Apparently they needed help from a Swedish pension fund to compete with Call of Duty. Well, that's sinking for a second. His big evidence is that Emma Ear, who was vice chair of AP7, also worked at Embracer as head of sustainability. That's it. That's smoking gun. 2 jobs in different organisations. Well, that's never happened before in history of business. By that logic, anyone who's ever had a LinkedIn profile with more than one employer is running shadow conspiracy. Half the gaming industry would be guilty of corporate espionage. And here's where it gets proper mental. Kotick claims lawsuit were timed to boost Embracer's stock and help their competing games like Dead Island 2, Insurgency, and Remnant 2. Right, because what Dead Island 2 really needed wasn't 10 years of development hell and 3 studio changes. Needed a Swedish pension fund filing paperwork in Delaware. That's secret sauce. Forget marketing, forget not being a broken mess on launch, just get pension funds involved. Embracer's response were absolute fucking savage. They said, and I quote, "Perhaps difficult to accept for Mr. Kotick, but we did not and do not need any help from a Swedish pension fund in competing with Activision." Translation? Mate, we weren't even thinking about you. We were too busy applauding our own company to care about yours. Because here's the thing Bobby conveniently forgets to mention. Embracer's crisis happened after the lawsuit was filed. In May 2023, their $2 billion Saudi deal collapsed. They've since laid off nearly 8,000 employees and closed 44 studios. They weren't plotting against Activision. They were too busy watching their own empire crumble to give a toss about Call of Duty. And this is where Bobby really loses the plot. In his filing, he vows to, and again I'm quoting directly, shine a light on gross misconduct or activists who invented false narrative and misconduct at Activision. False narrative. Let's check those receipts then, shall we? EEOC, that's Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. Federal fucking agency. Settled with Activision for $18 million over sexual harassment, pregnancy discrimination, and retaliation. Federal judge approved it. Called it fair, reasonable, and adequate. That's not narrative, Bobby. That's a legal fucking judgment. Then there's California's Civil Rights Department. They settled for $54 million. $54 million! For pay discrimination and promotion inequalities against female employees. That money didn't materialise out of thin air because some activists were bored on Twitter. It came from documented, investigated, legally verified workplace discrimination. Oh, and SEC, Security and Exchange Commission. They fined Activision $35 million for failing to maintain disclosure controls related to workplace complaints and for violating whistleblower protection rules. SEC literally said, company war without means to determine whether larger issues existed that needed to be disclosed to investors. That's regulatory speak for they weren't even bothered to track how bad things were. So let's get maths. 18 million plus 54 million plus 35 million. That's $107 million in settlements across 3 separate government agencies. But sure, Bobby, it's all false narrative. Those federal agencies, state regulators, and courts were all just making it up. Clearly they were in on Embracer conspiracy too. Maybe Maria was secretly running EEOC in her spare time. And that's before we even get to Wall Street Journal investigation. Remember that? One that revealed Kotick himself threatened to have his assistant killed in a voicemail back in 2006. He admitted it. Activision's official response was that he quickly apologised for obviously hyperbolic and inappropriate voicemail. Hyperbolic. That's the word they used. Like threatening to kill someone is just a bit of creative exaggeration. Just Bobby being Bobby, having a bit of a moment. Hope to see you here. Alright about when Treyarch co-head Dan Bunting were accused of sexual harassment in 2017. Internal investigation recommended he be fired. HR said, get rid of him. What did Bobby do? He personally intervened to keep man employed. Gave him counselling instead. That's not false narrative. That's documented company policy being overruled by its CEO to protect an accused harasser. And rape allegations at Sledgehammer Games. Kotick received an email about it in 2018. They settled out of court, and they didn't tell board of directors. Man running company knew about alleged rape at one of his studios and kept it from his own board. But activists invented narrative. Aye. You want to know what really undermines this false narrative bollocks? Employees. His own fucking employees. When Wall Street Journal report dropped in November 2021, over 1,000 Activision Blizzard workers signed a petition demanding Kotick's resignation. 1,000 people putting names on paper saying we no longer have confidence in leadership of Bobby Kotick. They staged multiple walkouts. People who worked there, who saw what were happening every day, walked out of their jobs to demand this man be removed. Petition explicitly stated information that has come to light about his behaviours and practices runs counter to culture and integrity we require of our leadership. Were these activists inventing false narratives too? Were employees of Activision Blizzard secretly working for Embracer? Maybe Maria was sneaking into Irvine offices at night, planting false memories in people's heads. Or, and here's a wild thought, maybe when over 1,000 of your own staff publicly demand your resignation, problem might actually be you. Even Phil Spencer, head of Xbox, said he was disturbed and deeply troubled by reports. PlayStation's Jim Ryan condemned behaviour. Nintendo's Doug Bowser said it ran counter to their values. 3 platforms, 3 competitors, all saying same thing. But sure, Bobby, everyone's just out to get you. And then there's other scapegoat in Bobby's blame buffet, Battlefield 6. In his filing, Kotick admits that Black Ops 7 is on track to perform over 60% below last year. 60%! That's not a dip, that's a cliff dive. And his explanation? Competition from Battlefield. Now look, I'll give credit where it's due. Battlefield 6 has been doing well. Best-selling gaming franchise. 7 million copies in first 3 days. Over 20 million by year's end. Yeah, finally got the shit together after Battlefield 2042 disaster. Fair play to her. But here's what Bobby conveniently ignores. Black Ops 7 has less than a 1.9 user score on Metacritic. 1.9 out of 10. It's worst rated Call of Duty ever by user reviews. On Steam, it's sitting at just over 40% positive. Less than half of people who bought it are recommending it. And when you filter to English language reviews, drops to mostly negative. This isn't Battlefield stealing customers. This is Call of Duty driving them away. But why are players so pissed off? Well, let's start with SBMM. Call of Duty's skill-based matchmaking has been wound up so tight you couldn't find a point to breathe, other than quitting game. Activision lied about its existence in COD for so long, it's made it hard for players to believe it doesn't exist at same level on open matchmaking. And why should they? Standard playlist is full version of SBMM. A lot of players ran to it like kids to a sweet shop. When you offer comfort and familiarity alongside something new, more often than not, modern gamers will choose comfort and familiarity, especially those reliant on that strong SBMM being exposed as frauds. Then there's Ricochet, probably the most useless anti-cheat in all industry. Need I say more? I remember when Black Ops 6 had that zombie Santa loading screen with 6 fingers. Classic lazy AI bollocks. And instead of learning from that embarrassment, they doubled down, made it worse, spread it throughout the entire game. Players were so angry some of them got refunds on Steam by citing AI-generated content that wasn't disclosed in marketing. That's how bad it's gotten. Then there's campaign. Players called it terrible, too similar to Black Ops 6 despite full price tag. Activision had to issue a public apology promising to over-deliver and said they'd never release back-to-back sub-franchise installments again. Microsoft reportedly told leadership that changes are very much required. When your parent company is publicly telling you to sort your shit out, maybe it's problem in Battlefield. But according to Bobby, it's all cause EA made a good game. Not cause Activision made a bad one, not cause they replaced artists with AI, not cause the recycled content, not cause of years of workplace scandal damaged brand. Nah, Battlefield's villain here. Battlefield and activists and pension funds and probably bloody weather. And through all of this, remember what Bobby Kotick actually walked away with. Because while he's crying about false narratives and conspiracy theories, he's doing it from atop a mountain of cash that makes Scrooge McDuck jealous. He owned 4.3 million shares of Activision, plus options to acquire another 2.2 million. At Microsoft's offer price of $95 per share, that works out to a potential of $500 million. $500 million. For running a company that paid out $107 million in misconduct settlements on his watch. For threatening to kill an assistant. For protecting accused harassers. For not telling his board about rape allegations. $500 million fucking dollars. And then there's timing of that sale. Bobby claims it wasn't rushed. Wall Street Journal expose dropped in November 2021. Phil Spencer contacted Kotick about acquisition 3 days later. 3 days. Stock had been tanking cause of scandals. Microsoft swooped in with a 45% premium. A lifeline for a sinking ship where captain everyone wanted to throw overboard. AP7 lawsuit argues exactly this, that Kotick rushed sale to escape accountability. And Bobby's defense is that he had foresight, that he predicted Call of Duty would decline. Mate, decline happened after you left. Under Microsoft's ownership, with a game full of AI-generated bollocks and recycled content. You don't get credit for predicting a fire you helped start. It's beautiful irony. Kotick using Black Ops 7's failure to justify his decision to sell. He's essentially saying, look how bad things got after I left. I was right to cash out. But brand damage, toxic workplace culture, years of settlement-worthy misconduct, that were all built on his watch. Over his 32 years as CEO, he spent 3 decades constructing the House of Cards, and now he wants credit for selling it before it collapsed. And now he's in court, blaming Swedish pension funds and German game publishers, claiming activists invented false narratives, while he sits on enough money to buy a small country. He has audacity of a fox complaining about state or hen house after eating every chicken in it. Bobby Kotick's legacy ain't gonna be games he published. It's gonna be this. Blame game, denial, absolute refusal to take any responsibility for all that happened under his leadership. No amount of legal filings is going to change that. Like, subscribe and all that bollocks. Drop your comments and questions below. Let me know if you think Bobby's lost plot or if he's playing some 4D chess restorers can't see. And I'll see you next time, you magnificent